The SG Child Show is back for its 13th season. Join Sara Bradford and the SG Child Show team as they explore the world of autism and share stories of hope and inspiration. This season, we're excited to bring you more autism summits featuring experts and advocates from around the world. Go to sgchilds.org.
In the heart of the city, she's shining bright. Oh yeah, stories of love and courage all throughout the night.
Hey everyone, just wanted to give you an update. The second annual International Autism Summit was such a success. Thank you to our sponsors and our amazing speakers. If you're interested in seeing any of those sessions, go to my YouTube channel, The SG Child Show, the live tab, and you can see each day, and their sessions are timestamped in the description. Hope to see you guys there. Hi, and welcome to the SG Child Show today. I'm really thrilled to bring two incredible guests, which, how exciting is that? You guys, normally get to hear me just have one conversation back and forth, but we're going to have a wonderful trifecta conversation today with my guests, Deb and John. And I'm at Autism Summit in the past and this last. You would have seen Harry's name all up and down in that comment section, just giving accolades and credit and connections. She's just a master of connections. So yes, love that. Deb, thank you so much for your time and for being here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and introduction, and then John will jump right into you.
Okay. Well, Sara, thank you so much for having John and myself on your podcast. We're very excited to talk to you about our book, Navigating Neurodiversity. My background is as a gifted intervention specialist for over 30 years in public and private schools. And I worked with gifted and twice exceptional students. And that included not just working with the students, but their families, helping them navigate really tough situations in schools where often the child was not being serviced correctly, and it led to a lot of issues or challenges for the child. So that is where my passion is. I've left the classroom after 40 years, and now I'm a gifted ed 2E consultant with my company, Smart Strategies. I've written a book on twice exceptional boys, and then I met and made a lifelong friend with John Truitt, and that's how we wrote Navigating Neurodiversity.
Oh, I love that. And John, I'm just honored that you are here today and looking forward to getting to know you better. Tell us a little bit about how it started for you, your background.
It's kind of hard to pick a place to start, but
19, no, I'm just kidding.
No, so I'm currently 52. I was diagnosed at 45 as twice exceptional, so gifted, also on the spectrum, as well as dyslexic, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, but I have advanced strengths in applying math. So I calculate math at the 10th grade level and I apply it at the grad school level, which is a real fun one if you can imagine going through school with that one. So I had a very different experience than most. I was never bullied in school. I was often a class leader, played sports, dated, pretty girls, pretty and smart girls, and kind of had a very different experience. The one I can relate to that's very common with twice exceptionality is I got the try harder or you're being lazy, because I'm blowing it out of the, off the chart in a AP honors English class, yet I'm struggling in algebra. So I had that real imbalance. But very long story short, went to a really good boarding school in the Southeast, came back to go to university, went for a year and a half, decided to join the Army, became a combat medic in the Army, came back out. My dad and grandfather are both doctors, and they had kind of a business side of medicine that I won't go into, but got into that. Ended up in Australia at 29, listing a company on the stock exchange, a medical device company. Relocated to CEO of that in the U.S., got really tired of corporate, and very much related to 2E. I wasn't bullied as a kid, but I guess if you would call it bullying, or I would call it duping, that really happened to me a lot in the boardroom. I'd be the one that does all the work and, has all these creative ideas and implements these strategies. Yeah. And I would get kudos verbally, But then you go and look at the packet, and I'm like, well, why? Not to say I wasn't making great money, but I would look at it and go, wait a minute, what compared to that, what I've done. So that really started to take me off. Started my own business. They're sleep and snoring diagnostic and therapy companies. Started that in Dallas. Got 3 pretty significant clinics up. Kind of moved to Durango to semi-retire. Had the last business turn unfavorably financially. So kind of took a little bit of a period there in 2018. Got diagnosed, spent a lot of time with my psychologist, seeing other patients with him, really went super deep. Met Deb, wrote the book. We co-authored that, taught TUI kids for about 1.5 years. And then 6 months ago, started with another startup. So I'm in about month 2.5 of operations on a brand new startup that we're doing here in Denver. So,
well, John, welcome to the life of serial entrepreneurship, as I like to call it for myself.
And I can't do it any other way. I've tried to fit into the office environment. I know there's lots of things that can be done. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I'm not a control freak, but I do have to have a full view of the company to be able to, instead of just, hey, you're in operations, I need to see finance, operations, marketing. And you just, unless it's your business, you just don't really have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely, can, that's another thing I can relate to, the workplace struggles with the quote unquote high functioning, twice exceptional person. I can very, very much empathize with that.
And I think it's great that you have this different perspective, because you're right. I think that oftentimes it is kind of the story of the struggling, bullied child or whatnot. Not that that isn't, relevant and doesn't truly happen more than not. But I think it's always important to have the other side for those that can relate to that side of life. Like my husband and I, for example, a lot of the same things resonate, throughout our lives. And, especially finally when we found each other and we're able to have this incredible, intelligent conversation with someone finally, and thought, oh my gosh, here you are finally. But how did you two come to meet? And what did it look like kind of meeting the minds and deciding a book?
Well, from my end, Deb obviously needs to give her side of that. But from my end, I had decided that I very much wanted to write a book. And I was looking on LinkedIn. I do a lot on LinkedIn. I believe Deb does as well. And we just came across each other, and I sent her an email and said, hey, look, here's kind of a very brief synopsis of what I have going on and what I want to do. Would you like to co-author a book? And her immediate gut response was, I just finished one. But no, we connected there immediately, hit it off, and kind of understood, obviously, with her extensive background in twice exceptional education, she knew how to communicate with me. And it was, I don't think I couldn't have done it by myself because of the lack of structure. And I don't think I could have done it with someone who didn't have an in-depth, thorough background with that. Mm-hmm. So that's my side, Deb. Go.
Right. Well, as John said, when I opened that LinkedIn message, and at first I thought this is a parent reaching out to me to talk about their TUI child, because the business that I have now, Sara, is that, parents contact me from around the world. But then when I messaged him back, I realized he's talking about himself. So we actually got on the phone, and I told him, yes, I just finished a book. It just got published. And to sit down and write another one, it's a 1 year or more process from start to finish. And then you have to go through trying to have it published. And that could go on for months. So I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But it took me, I think, 2 conversations with John, and I was all in. He just, as he told you his short summary of his life, I was just so in awe. I just thought, I have to get to know this man better. And his story needs to be told. I think he and I both agreed, and he certainly was the first in the place to say, there are not a lot of resources out there on adults that are twice exceptional. When I first started my career in gifted ed, there weren't a lot of books on giftedness. Now there are a plethora of them, and even twice exceptionality, and organizations like SANG, and then things that we talked about, Harry O'Kelly. And there are a lot of people out there doing some great work, but there weren't a lot on adults. So I was like 2 thumbs up, and John and I dove in, and it was just a phenomenal experience. I'm used to being the teacher, although my students have always taught me the most, but John taught me more than I ever helped him with. It was just amazing, an amazing experience. I said it was a gift from God, but
I love that. I love that.
The connection. It was,
well, and the timing, it really was too. I mean, I'm sure that it was, somehow I am not religious, but very spiritual. I think timing, it's all about kind of timing, and the right things happen at the right times. You Absolutely. Can't force them. They don't fit and they don't work. And I know that feeling. John, What is your passion behind, what do you want people to get out of the book?
Well, first of all, just a broader understanding that TUI exists. That's kind of the first thing, is like, this is what twice exceptionality is. The second thing is, unlike, they used to say in autism that it goes away, right? Only kids have autism. It never goes away. And that being twice exceptional, I view it very much as something to accept and just acknowledge. And I'm not like a real lefty kind of person. And I know that like words like, and that can sound all fruity. No, I just mean, it's very simple. If I were to condense it into a sentence, is I don't want to be cured. I want to be understood. And I see in the autism community, I'd love to talk some RFK with you later on if we have time, but within the autism community, I don't really put the split where, the DSM does. To me, that's just really, it's not what it is. I think DSM-4 had it right when they had what used to be called Asperger's, which often was twice exceptionality, kind of put it on the side. So I really don't look at it along those lines. I look at it along a cure or accept line. So you have parents of quote unquote low functioning, and I hate that term, even nonverbal kids who they like you said, believe it's a gift from God and they love every moment of it. I understand there are a lot of parents on that side of the spectrum that don't, and can understand. I can understand as a parent myself why they would be seeking a cure, because it presents itself as a pathology. I'm very much on the other side of it. With regardless of where the child or adult is on the spectrum. To me, that's the delineator, is, do you want to be cured or do you want to be accepted?
Yeah, there's a big divide where it comes to inclusion and belonging. And I think that's a big kind of everybody, we all just want to belong, and that we can be included, but that doesn't mean that we still belong there. And that doesn't mean we're feeling like we belong there. And I'm saying we, because I also am late diagnosed, just so you are, I'm not, speaking out of place here, but, and when I grew up as my parents didn't, they were business and career minded. I was an only child, and for them it was just keep her at school and after school programs, keep her busy, that was it. There was no actual, she is gifted, what we could do this, we could do so much more. It was just kind of, here's the bottom line, good luck. My dad always used to say, keep your nose clean, good luck. See, he was in the military, so that's it.
That's it.
Peace out. And so, I think oftentimes, as for me, that building that independence quite early, and then also having that struggle of not ever being understood or feeling like I belonged, even though I didn't struggle with, making friends, it would look like to others. But, my mom would always say to me, why aren't you friends with these group of girls? Why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? And there was always a deficit of what you were, the extra drama queen. That's what it was. And so I love that today, when people talk about disclosure and talk about diagnosis and things, I am so, on the side of independence and freedom in having it, and then getting the support, and then not having this other who you might be that society decides are these degrading, associations with you. But it's really tricky. But my son, so I never knew anything, but our son was quickly understood. He was reading at 1 and writing at 2, and there was not a doubt in any, there was no doubt in my mind, but there was in everyone else's. And so it's so important that we kind of get the highlight and the spotlight on TUI individuals. So let's kind of break this down for listeners that might not even know now what we're talking about. Deb, what is the 2E definition, if you will? How would you describe that for our listeners?
Right. So, Sara, twice exceptionality refers to an individual that is gifted by, there are many definitions of giftedness. In the United States, giftedness is one who works well above, if you want to say academically, if we're talking about school age, well above their same age peers. As you said, your son was reading, well before entering elementary school. I have clients who have children that are 4 years old doing math at 6th grade level. So a twice exceptional student is gifted, or a twice exceptional adult is gifted. And then there's some learning difference or differences. As John mentioned, it could be dysgraphia, dyslexia, autism. It could be combination. The interesting thing about identifying twice exceptional students in schools is that there's 3 categories. One is that the giftedness shines right through. And so the child comes into school and they're so bright, and teachers are like, ooh, what, my goodness, this child is doing this so advancedly and so easily, and doesn't need repetitions of the skill work. And what do I do with him or her? But the learning difference doesn't show itself readily. And then there's the child who the learning difference is right out in front, glaring. And the teacher or adults in that child's life don't even realize that the child is gifted. And I've had many students in that category. When the child was identified by a school district as gifted, the parents and or teachers and or administrators went, gifted? What? I never would have thought he or she was gifted. So that learning difference and those behaviors that kind of come with that really overshadowed the giftedness. And then the third category are those children who the giftedness and learning differences really kind of just cancel each other out. The child appears average, quote unquote, average in the classroom. So as the child gets older in school, and for example, the grades start dropping because they have either a language difference, writing is difficult, reading is difficult, or math is difficult, then it's like, wait a minute, why is this just showing up now? So eventually it kind of presents itself. But that third category, those children just look like they're average, not gifted, don't have learning differences, just send them on through,
Absolutely. John, what is some advice you would like parents to look for, keep in mind that, and maybe supports you would have had available to you?
Well, I think very early what parents need to look for, and this, it doesn't contraindicate anything, but there's the classic mold of, okay, child was developing till 2, then went nonverbal, then so that's what autism is. No. I mean, and Deb and I go into this in depth in the book. She interviewed a lot of my family and friends. I never crawled. I went straight to walking. I was speaking in complete sentences at roughly 9 months old. Similar with the reading. I was reading in kindergarten. I was reading at the 6th to 7th grade level. And I said I was dyslexic. And I found out this is actually fairly common on the spectrum. You start off as hyperlexic. So I was hyperlexic. And then as far as reading speed, people caught up. So my type of dyslexia is speed. So as an adult, I read at roughly half the pace of somebody who's, a pretty voracious reader, but I comprehend 99% of it, which is obviously really high. I do not have a photographic memory. I do have an associative memory. So when we're talking about something that I remember, essentially movies pop into my head and I can kind of roll and watch them. But it's not the type of thing, wait a minute, page 600 of Tolstoy, it says exactly this. It's not that. It's very associative. But what I'd like them to know is really that big difference, that if they're seeing those developmental milestones happen quickly, it's not only this is the kid gifted, in my opinion, it's very, very likely they're twice exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And I love when you were saying that, because it's when you know and you can see in your family and be able to give the support, it's just it blows your mind. And it wasn't until DJ was homeschooled and already past high school. He's 15 now, and we really aren't doing anything specific, but we'll get to that. But when Harry told me about this community that existed of all of these twice exceptional parents and people, and I had built this community in the autism world, if you will, for decade, and it was really so eye-opening, and just this like, oh my gosh, there's another community that we are part of that we didn't even know we had all of these friends that we could relate to and have these ideas from, because there's not many conversations you can have with a person who understands, and not in my case, but for DJ, like what it was like to, like John, be doing algebra in first grade. That's why we were turned away from public school. And that's why they said, we can no longer help you. We don't have algebra for first graders. And I remember we were, went to a specialized autism school, and DJ has developmental delay, and there's a lot of differences as far as like his reciprocity is hardly at all, and so it's tricky, and it's hard to know how to measure, I guess, those types of things. But like John said, he actually has a photographic memory, so the way we were able to see it was in the recreation of the things that he was showing us so that we could help get him the support. But what a hard journey it was when he was little, and no one believed us, essentially. No one believed. We went to the pediatrician and said, oh my gosh, he's reading, he's doing this. And the guy said, that's ridiculous. Like, he's not making eye contact. He is not making the verbal cues that he should be making. He is not pointing. Like, these are the things. And I was like, no. The kid is reading, I had a totally different view of this. I guess that's why it's a good thing he's my kid.
Yes. But I will say, Sara, it's super important. You know your child best, and to advocate for him or her, it's challenging, especially when you come up against professionals like medical professionals or educators, administrators, who you assume, and we get in trouble when we assume, but when you assume that they understand what you're talking about, and you assume that they're going to believe you. And so when I taught as well as now, I see your situation all the time. And so that's where it's really important to be an advocate and give them the right language, the right questions to ask, and really help them navigate, like I said early on in the podcast, to navigate those very tricky waters that you as a parent experience with a 2-week kid.
Exactly. Yeah. And John, I really respect and appreciate how you talked about kind of workplace, because I think that I just, had this really great summit, and some of my advocates are twice exceptional, and they really do have some struggles in the workplace and have a hard time understanding why. Like, I have 2 master's degrees and you can't keep me employed. Like, what kind of, and I hear this all the time from them. And so I really appreciate that you shared that part of it. Is there mentors or anything in that kind of early time that helped you understand, like, to grasp onto things and get into a better situation?
Well, I was never in a bad situation to be
Oh,
honest.
that's good.
I was never in a bad situation. And again, kind of like being twice exceptional, and Deb can comment on this, my life, if I were just a normal neurotypical and you looked at my life, it's kind of like, oh my God, really? My dad, who, as I mentioned, was a clinician, I'm trying to do this without getting into all kinds of details, but self-limited his medical practice to a certain type of specialty and started lecturing all over the US and then all over Europe. So I forget the exact, Deb, from the book, but I think it was by age 10, I'd been to 40 states, however many different, places, predominantly in Europe. And I tell you that to tell you, those were my mentors. They were the doctors. They were, the doctors. I learned all the clinical stuff from the sales reps that would come to display on sales booths. I hung out with them. I learned how to, not just sell, but really run a sales team. Hearing from them what they liked about their boss and didn't like about their boss. So everything with me it's very, very hands-on learning. Later in my career, I ended up during the IPO, I went straight into the C-suite as the chief marketing officer. So again, it was like starting my own business. I didn't have to go through that corporate ladder. And I found that when you're particularly in a startup, particularly a publicly held startup, people don't care. They don't care where you went to school. They don't care if you're quirky. It's basically if you can get it done. And when you're dealing with that very top echelon of people, they love teaching. And I love asking questions. Mm-hmm. So that's really kind of how I developed, going through that whole thing. And again, in school, unlike what happened with you, that they didn't believe or anything else, I come from a small Texas town. Father's a really well-known doctor. Grandfather's a really well-known doctor. There was never any doubt of am I intelligent or not? And a couple of quick things. What's funny, my dysgraphia obviously started displaying, presenting very early. Well, the reason John has bad handwriting is he's going to be a doctor. That was what the teacher.
I love that.
One second.
I actually worked in both medical and legal, so I completely I appreciate that so much.
So that was kind of on the right side. But the other part of it, it was before all these testing of teachers where let's test the teacher on how many students pass. They could actually teach. And I'm pretty positive some of my elementary school teachers probably went to normal college. Right. I mean, these weren't folks with master's degrees from, Harvard, but they knew kids and they didn't know what to label somebody like me, but knew how to deal with it. And for example, I'm a voracious reader. And Deb, we talked about the SRAs. I don't know what they called them now. Back in the day, they were SRAs, which were these little what would it be?
Little pamphlets. Stories.
Laminated pamphlet, and it's a short story. Mm-hmm. And at the end, you answer the questions from a comprehension. Mm-hmm. I love them. So I would finish my work in class, and my teachers would be like, there's a box of these things, like a huge.
Yes, they're color coded, and they go up in level. You just keep going.
I would just rip through them. So that was a positive way, and I think it's one of the reasons I probably didn't get distracted and get in trouble in elementary school for acting out, was because they always had something else for me to do. As soon as I'd finish something, they'd have something else. And we just, and it wasn't, go to recess and hang out. It was, hey, let's do something constructive. So again, a little bit of a different experience there, but commenting quickly back onto the travel. And again, we speak about this in the book. I cannot understate to the parents of twice exceptional children how imperative travel and touching things are. And I realize everybody doesn't have the money to do what I was able to do. But one well-organized trip to Washington, D.C., running through the Smithsonian's, going through all those. If you can't do that, just even online, you can't touch it, but to go through it together and see that, those experiences. I think it's a huge key to why I've been able to be successful navigating the world of neurotypicals.
I love that. I did a lot of traveling as a child too, because my dad was in the military. He was an F-4 pilot. So we did a lot of traveling to other places.
Oh, cool.
I think that I'm just going to be a little, I think the level of education and drive that sounds like both of our parents had was definitely a gift to both of us. And, I remember when you were talking about the mentors and the people that you would hang around. My mom was a nurse, so she was always with all of the doctors. And I remember that situation, but I was always down at the guard, and I was always down with all of the other guardsmen. And I just saw and he was the commander of the guard at the time. And so just to see kind of the how it was ran. So I don't know why I never went into the military. I think that I just, as soon as I could, I was like, run, that's a whole nother podcast episode. But, I think that having those, having the travel, like I wish that we had more means to travel with DJ, and let's just put it out there. It's going to happen in the future. I'm just universing that right now because he actually is he loves linguistics, and he speaks several, and he doesn't speak like, I don't think he could have a conversation with anyone in the multiple languages that he actually has memorized, but he could identify like the text of it, or if he heard it, he could translate what the person might be saying. So it's interesting just to find somebody who can appreciate what that means, because even just I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, even just going downtown and walking and going past some of the cathedrals that have like written Roman and things like that. And it's so fun to just let him discover. And like you said, to touch things, it's so important.
The tactile part is very important. And that's actually something I can very much relate with. I'm the same with languages. I don't speak multiple languages, but particularly within the Romance languages, some Greek, but predominantly Latin, I just kind of automatically break stuff down. I can't explain how it works, but I can look at something and go, okay, wait, and it won't be verbatim reading it, but it's enough to glean the context of what they're talking about. Yeah. And then as I was a little kid, just learning, like in second grade, learning more advanced vocabulary, like omnipotent. Well, I knew omni meant everything. Potent is potent, omnipotent, omnipotent. Got it. Thanks. Right. So kind of breaking stuff down like that. Again, it's hard to kind of verbalize, but that's how in my mind's eye it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Deb, what are you working on now as like going and getting the book out, of course, to the people who need it? Isn't that the hardest and most important part?
It really is. John and I have done podcasts together. We've done separately. I do a lot of professional development, and my focus again is trying to help teachers understand these students who are in their classrooms, and how to provide many opportunities for them. And touching back on the mentorship, I have had, many school districts who kind of push away from that, but then when they see how successful mentorships are for these TUI students, it's like eye-opening. One of the boys I wrote about in my first book, he was so advanced, but had a language learning difference. And but by fourth grade, he wanted to be an attorney. So we found a gentleman, a parent in our district, who volunteered in different capacities with his children's district, our district. And I asked him, and he came in one day every 2 weeks and sat for over an hour with my student. And they just had conversations about immigration law. And this is a 9-10-year-old boy who, when you sat in the conference room where they were talking, it was like two old law buddies, that had met up and the conversations. So that hour that he spent with a mentor was much more valuable than sitting in a spelling language class. Or let's say, he was super advanced in math, so that's what we took him out of. And then we upped his math, the other 4 days a week. So, and when I say up the math, what I mean is he was working at an advanced level. And a lot of times I was his teacher of record. But getting back to getting books out there and having conversations, it's just a lot of networking, Sara, as you know. And so, when I met Harry at sang Social Emotional Needs of Gifted, and I was speaking about Twice Exceptional Boys, she and I just connected because she has a very gifted boy who's now in college.
Yeah.
In West Virginia, close to where I'm at. So we just so connected, and then those connections just go from there. So speaking with people on podcasts and in person and doing some traveling. So it's an ongoing process. You just kind of hook on wherever you can to get the word out. And John's amazing at that. He's just amazing at all his business connections and family. And like he said, he's been in Europe and Texas, and he's got such an amazing combination of attributes. So I told him he and I need to go on the road more, but
that's what I was going to say.
Ohio, and he's in Colorado. And
okay, so you guys, it's a little bit tricky to do some book signings and things like that, right? Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, I love that. Well, and I wanted to make sure that we had the information, how to reach both of you and get in touch with you. So I do have your websites and stuff, but let's talk about the book. Is there is there a second book in the talking, and any ideas, or what can we look forward to in the future, John? What's next for you?
I would like to take, because I don't know if we got into this, the book's broken into 3 parts. The middle part is the biography. I would like to expand on the biography part. I've been approached by a few people about a movie, and that could be anything from a 1 episode Netflix thing to, what I always want, which is an Academy Award. So staging that, as far as the book and the work and stuff go, that would kind of be where I would see it. From this way. And I'm doing this current business. This will become like a business for me, the book, along with the foundation. It's really kind of branching out and doing stuff like that. And I do also, it's not related to the topic, but I do also have some different views from a lot of people that are kind of coming from my angle. One, as a lifelong entrepreneur and business owner, not a huge fan of DEI. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't see why, if I've taken my money or someone else's money and my time and my ideas and created something, that I should be forced to hire whoever. Now, on the opposite end of that, huge into accommodation, right? So in my view, it's about accommodation. I think DEI lends itself to like an affirmative action situation, which I have African-American friends who are in their 50s that are like, I'm still not getting over that. They were brilliant. Yeah. And it has that stigma. So, that's one thing. The other thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way is, this world that I don't fit into. Funnily enough, people like myself created it. And you can't reverse diagnose people. But if you look at the experts and we're talking Thomas Jefferson, Henry Ford, Nikola Tesla, Einstein, in modern day, Gates, Jobs, right? It baffles me sometimes that we create the very world that we're not accepted in.
Yeah, that's really ironic and very misunderstood.
Yeah, it's
I saw some really strange art pictures in my mind for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what that brought to me, but yeah. Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
And that's a big connection that John and I have in terms of, I'm looking at children, he's looking at adults, that accommodation. It's not that, a lot of schools will say, well, we don't have the money for that, or we don't have the space to do that, or we don't have the trained specialists to do that. They start going down the road of all the things they don't have or can't do. And it's the same in an office situation. They think it's going to be costly. They think we need special lighting or this or that, that it's just start shooting it down before it's even tried, implemented. Such simple accommodations can spawn such great success and happiness.
Absolutely. Goodness. You had mentioned a foundation, and I had that address right here on the spectrumfoundation.org. Talk to us a little bit about that and what you do with the foundation and for the community.
Well, it's really parallel to the book. It's creating awareness. When I first got diagnosed, I was like, like a lot of people that are on the spectrum, I'm like, I'm going to take all of this. So it's like the entire spectrum of everything from an autism standpoint. Well, then I realized the kind of, and again, don't like the terms, low functioning, high functioning, battle, and cure, accept, and all. And I kept just narrowing it down, and I ended up at 2E. That's kind of how it all works, because they're really the only people I on the spectrum that I can communicate with. It's again kind of hard to explain, but that's kind of where it went, was towards twice exceptionality. I do life coaching, classic, what used to be called Asperger's. I find very difficult to life coach. It's just, I can't establish the rapport. I can't get the conversational turn taking. I mean, I can't really get them to budge. Whereas with the 2E person, and it's both kids and adults, I mean, they immediately want to talk. They're immediately interested in the subject matter. So that kind of stuff. But as far as the foundation's goals go, at this point, it's just awareness. Unfortunately, I am very hyper-focused on the for-profit business right now at this moment. Part of the goal of that is to be able to put quite a bit of capital back into the 501c3 and start expanding what we're doing. But I'll get email messages that really it's nothing beyond, oh, wow, now I understand myself a lot better, or, oh, wow, I'm going to go seek a diagnosis. So even in its passive role, it's still doing part of what I want it to do, but we'd really like to turn up the volume on that when time allows. And I'm at the age where a lot of my friends are starting to retire or semi-retire and have more time to help with stuff like that. So, the kids are out of the house and they can go. So at any rate, that's really kind of the overall goal of it, is really awareness, and then people being able to look at it and have some degree of self-acceptance and realize that they're not alone and that they're not broken, and that in all actuality, they're in a large part, they're the people that have contributed most to our society.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we'll have to follow each other and read each other's posts, because I'm sure we've probably said the same thing in a paragraph before. So I love that, John. No, it's been so nice to get to know you both, and tell us what we can find when we go to your website, Deborah, as far as how can clients reach out to you? What does that process look like for them?
Right. So if you go to my website, deborahgennarelli.com, individuals will find a lot of different things. One of them is what my passion is about. And then they will find both our books there. They'll find reviews of both of our books there, as well as on Amazon, but they're there as well. A list of resources for parents, adults that want to learn about giftedness and twice exceptionality. And those resources are broken down into books and articles and podcasts and YouTube connections, different things that I've already found that I think are amazing. And so they can just find those right in one spot. And then there's also, if parents or school districts want to talk to me about supporting them, advocating for them and their needs, there's that as well. So it's a lot of different connections on my website, and that's where they can find me.
I love that. Well, it's been so nice to get to know you guys. Thank you for being patient to get here. I know I had to get through this summit that I just did, which was phenomenal. 18 hours worth of amazing information for the community, and hopefully just the world, anybody who decides to go listen. So, and it was streamed free for the first time, which I was, not sure what that was going to look like, but it was phenomenal. And and I was going to ask, what's some of the feedback from the book that you've gotten, John, that's just, been the best?
Well, again, like Deb said, the reviews are there, and obviously those kind of speak for themselves. But just in general, a better understanding of it. I mean, my friends, first of all, were the ones, and Deb spoke with my best friend Pierce, and the way that went down for my diagnosis was I called him I was like, hey, look, here's what they're saying. He called me back in 30 minutes, and he's a very analytical engineer. He's a really smart guy. And he was like, yep, I've been looking for that for 45 years. It's exactly what it is. So then kind of taking that and then just expanding upon it. But I mean, I've had feedback from friends that really appreciated it, educators, parents, they're all different angles. And that was really one of our goals, is Deb and I didn't want to pigeonhole this to a specific audience. It's for HR managers, it's for educators, it's for people themselves. It's the whole gamut. And I think breaking it into those 3 parts really helps with that, because people are going to be attracted to the different, you know what I mean? Each one of those is going to be something that people are predominantly attracted to. So
absolutely.
Right.
Navigating neurodivergence. Is that right?
Navigating neurodiversity.
Neurodiversity. Thank you. It's like what I can't be typing today and talking at the same time for some reason.
But the
right, and we talk quite a bit, Sarah, in the first part of the book about what is giftedness, what is what is autism, and then how there's kind of a thread that pulls through those two. So individuals that, again, don't really see giftedness as a neurodiversity, which it is. That's why, when I talk to educators about these kids' brains are working differently and therefore their behaviors sometimes are different than the neurotypical kid in the classroom, that's really important to understand. So there's a good breakdown of that in the first part of the book. And then everyone has to just soak up the middle part, which is all about John's life. And, I wish it could have been a 500-page book, but our publisher's like, keep it to 300 pages, or we're talking about a textbook. So, and then the last part, about how we can support twice exceptional individuals from children to adults.
Are there any other resources other than your guys' websites that you'd like to give to the community?
I would just say, if you're going to my website, click on the resource tab. And like I said, there is a plethora of information.
Love that. I love that. Yeah. I think that I'm finding so many amazing organizations and ways to get support. Every family is different. Every individual is different. So find what you need, what feels right for you, what resonates, and kind of sounds like John has already surrounded himself with like-minded individuals and friends of that nature. So doing great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, both of you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sarah.
I would love to stay in touch.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really fun.
John, good seeing you.
Shining bright, oh yeah, stories of love and courage all throughout the night. Her voice resonating, an anthem for all through the trials and the triumphs. She answers the call, a mother and a fighter, breaking barriers in stride. With love as her guide, she'll never hide. She's changing the world for you, with the heart that's fierce and strong. Empathy's a melody. Journey we all belong. Followers gather like stars in the night. So bright, 44,000 voices sharing in the light. She stands for family, advocates for more. A movement of compassion, ways will soar. Podcast together, a symphony of support. Creating life, changing rapport.